The Marketing Review with Cambridge Marketing Colleges. Visit marketingcollege.com to see our courses.
Hello and welcome to the Marketing Review with Cambridge Marketing Colleges. I'm your host, Kiran Kapoor, and coming up on the show, we have a review of the best marketing magazines. We look at the cutting-edge world of marketing for technology businesses. And first up, we consider a new buzzword in marketing to stakeholders. My first guest is Terry Nicklin of Keynote PR, an award-winning Cambridge-based PR and marketing communications agency. Terry is so interested in stakeholder marketing, he wrote a Stakeholder Marketing Handbook published by Kogan Page last year. So Terry, let's start off. What are stakeholders?
Right, hi Kiran. Well, it's a fascinating area and one I think we're all perhaps familiar with a little bit as consumers, but organisations are increasingly needing to take into account the views of a much broader range of publics or stakeholders, as we now call them, who might have different needs, different concerns from customers, but who are still affected by or can affect us in our organisation in carrying out our operations. And perhaps I should just say, in terms of the handbook which I produced last year, this was put together at the suggestion of Charles Nixon of Cambridge Marketing College, and he had handbooks already organised for what we often call in marketing the 7 Ps of price, product, place, promotion, the other 3, people, processes and physical evidence. But for some time I've been working with the 10 Ps, and the extra 3 Ps, if you like, are those of stakeholder marketing. And those 3 Ps are public opinion, politics and partners. So the concept of putting those 3 extra Ps together into one place, into one handbook, and trying to cover as much ground as we could in terms of what organisations these days need to think about, led to the birth of the concept of a stakeholder marketing handbook. Perhaps I should say what stakeholders are, or who stakeholders are. There are really 3 types. There are what one might call internal stakeholders, and these are typically employees. They might be directors, they might be interns, they might be junior managers or whoever. There are what we call connected stakeholders, and these would typically be customers and, very importantly, suppliers. And then we have external stakeholders, people like regulators, governments, journalists and media generally. And all of these need to be considered for how much interest they have in the organisation and indeed how much power they have. And those 2 things are not the same at all. There are people like the media, for instance, who might have high power in the sense that they can write good or bad things about an organisation, but probably low interest because they're also interested in thousands of other companies. So our job in that case is to reach out to the media and present favourable information and to engage with the media in a way that's beneficial to the reputation of the organisation.
So are customers part of these stakeholders? Are they one group of stakeholders?
Yes, customers are certainly a stakeholder. And as I say, I think marketers are well aware of customers. What we're seeing, though, is that other people are coming onto the scene and are influencing the reputation of an organisation. And organisations have to be managing their own reputation very proactively. To give you one simple example, if I were to say to anyone today, Starbucks, almost certainly the first word that springs to mind is tax. Now, it's 18 months getting on for 2 years ago since that whole issue came up, yet we still have that in mind, and I'm quite sure there are some consumers who will cross the road to go to a different coffee shop because of their view of Starbucks. It's not quite so easy to find another Google or another Amazon, but those organisations also were affected by this whole issue of tax avoidance. In the past, customers typically would tell people if they have a good or a bad experience, and the old maxim in marketing was that you'll tell 3 people if you have a good experience and you'll tell 22 people if you have a bad experience. I think today if you have a bad experience you probably tell 10 million people, because you'll go onto your Twitter feed or onto your favourite social media platform and you'll tell people and they'll tell their friends and so on, and in perhaps even as little as a few hours a story will have got around the globe, which in the past just couldn't happen. So increasingly, organisations are operating in a public spotlight. It's as if there's a camera running at all times, and we're all very aware of what organisations are doing, or at least what we think they're doing. And the call is therefore, I think, for greater transparency. A good word is authenticity. We want to know what organisations actually stand for. What do they really mean? customers now can buy a pair of jeans for £2 or £3 in a store, possibly in a supermarket. In the past, we'd have rubbed our hands and said, great, this is super, go and buy a dozen. Today, we say, well, hang on, if they're £2, that means someone probably in a developing country is earning very little for making these. And is that exploitation? Should we be buying these things? Should we instead look for something like a fair trade label and, do the right thing? And I think all these concerns are growing. Organisations, therefore, are having to monitor their reputations, particularly online, but they're having to monitor what people are saying about them, what reputation they have, and as I say, do that in a proactive way so that we have clear allocation of responsibilities. Someone in the organisation needs to be responsible for what employees think, for what shareholders think.
That almost sounds a bit Big Brother, being responsible for what employees think. Can you explore that one a bit further? How would you market to your employees?
Sure. I think today people are very clear, really, about their right to know things. And when I say what employees think, I'm not suggesting we, as it were, indoctrinate them only. We can try, but I don't think it'd go too far. No, I'm thinking about really presenting the organisation's side of things. Let me give you an example. Let's say as an organisation we were manufacturing some products in the UK and we decided to put this offshore to manufacture it in a cheaper location. And imagine you were the marketer writing a press release to announce this loss of jobs in the UK because of the offshore of the manufacturing. If you have customers in mind, what will customers be looking for? They will be looking for some continuity. They will be looking for an assurance that, the products are still there, the quality is going to be great, we're still here, the service level will be still good. So that's a continuity message. For employees, what they'll be looking for is some expression of regret, probably. The management regrets that people have had to be made redundant, alternatives have been sought within the organisation, we're helping with outplacement, or whatever it is that the organisation's doing to help the displaced employees. The shareholders will be looking for probably what's the economic benefit for them. This is possibly management taking early decisive action in the face of a fierce competitive market. So they might have quite a different perspective on this. And of course, we can't be disingenuous. We can't write 3 different press releases and send them to 3 different people. We can't expect to get away with giving different messages for long, because everyone will go to the website, everyone will read our statements, they will read what journalists and other people have said about our developments and so on. So we just have to be more mindful, I think, of the different needs, the different stakeholder concerns and how we address those. Now, when I say who's responsible for that, I think marketing should take the majority of the responsibility. I think marketers need to broaden their roles beyond customers and look at all these stakeholders as far as possible. But of course, we may also have investor relations departments, we may have HR, we may have corporate affairs for large organisations. In smaller organisations, maybe the managing director himself or herself has to take a personal role in being the front of the organisation, as it were, and representing its values.
Terry, you talked about investor relation departments and HR departments. That sounds like something sort of only big businesses have. So are stakeholders something that small businesses need to worry about?
Yeah, no, that's a very good question. I think it's certainly true that for the larger organisations, and particularly consumer goods organisations and high-profile brands, then they're that much more obvious, aren't they? We see them, we see how we think they behave, we interact with them, and we've all got a story about Tesco or about Amazon or something. If I started talking about, applied graphene materials or TT Electronics or something, business-to-business organisations, it wouldn't perhaps have the same resonance. But the same principles apply. Those businesses have employees, they have financial providers, they have stakeholders of all sorts, they have suppliers. Suppliers we haven't talked about yet, but a very important aspect of stakeholders. And, managing those and having an enlightened approach to those different groups is equally important for all organisations. And when I say organisations, I don't only mean companies. It might be government departments, a very clear example of where the public relations aspect, if you like, of their external communications is really key. It might even be something like a business park. That could be an entity in terms of managing its reputation externally.
It sounds like stakeholders could be just one more problem to deal with. Oh gosh, I've got this message to get out, I'm offshoring, I've got enough problems, and now I've got to think about all the people that I'm going to give messages to. Is that the way I should think of it?
Well, it's certainly true that bad news sort of travels faster than good, I think, and so we tend to hear of these bad examples. But no, I think stakeholders can be a tremendous source of competitive advantage, and this is perhaps where we can bring suppliers in. If we think of a more enlightened approach today that many organisations have to suppliers, instead of regarding them as adversaries, people to be negotiated with for the best possible pricing deal once a year, and think of them more as partners who can bring innovation, partners who can bring better ways of working, then clearly that is a huge source of competitive advantage. One of the major authors in this field, Everett Gummerson, said that suppliers were responsible for something like 65 to 70% of innovation in many sectors. And you can clearly see this if you think of your laptop computer, the innovation that's happened in the displays or in the keyboard or in the modem didn't get developed probably by the PC manufacturer. It was developed by a display manufacturer or a modem producer, and they went along to the PC company and said, look, we've got this great new screen, this great new keyboard, whatever it is. And so we can use suppliers in a more enlightened way, in a more creative way, if we perhaps share more with them, if we look to the longer term, if we regard them as potential partners and a source of competitive advantage. The same thing could be applied to employees. Employees are a tremendous source of innovation. They can be through things like quality circles. They can be more responsible for the quality of the product going out of the door in a manufactured situation. Empowerment of employees is very important, letting employees have more discretion, particularly in service businesses where a large proportion of the quality of the service as perceived by the customer comes from the interaction with the individual employee. And even competitors can be a good source as well. If you think of the airlines with their Star Alliance and their code sharing and these kind of things, that's another source of an economic benefit from cooperating with competitors. So I think there's tremendous scope for looking for opportunities, looking for new ways of working and new ways of working with stakeholders. Perhaps a really up-to-date and interesting one is this issue of crowdsourcing or crowdfunding, where we can get funding from a large number of smaller fund suppliers for a new innovation which perhaps wouldn't attract funding from the more traditional routes.
Terry, that was absolutely fascinating. Finally, before you go, have you any top tips for our listeners on how to deal with stakeholders?
Well, yes, I think the best thing you can do is to get a sheet of paper and just write down as many stakeholders as you can for your organisation. You'll certainly find it easy, I think, to get half a dozen. With a bit of extra effort, you should easily get up to, I would say, 10 to 12. Don't forget the internal, connected and external classification of stakeholders there to tease out a few more. And it wouldn't be unusual to get as high as 20 to 30 stakeholders. I've recently done an organisation for a large financial company, and we easily got to 30 different types of stakeholders. And we were then able to look at, well, what were the concerns of each of these groups? How could we best manage them? What would be appropriate messaging to manage our reputation with these different stakeholders? So have a good list. I think you'll surprise yourself with how many different stakeholders there are, how many you can tease out, and then, of course, who is responsible or should be responsible in the organisation for understanding the needs of stakeholders and how to communicate with them effectively.
Terry Nicklin, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you.
The Marketing Review with Cambridge Marketing Colleges. Enhance your career with Cambridge Marketing Colleges.
Many thanks to Terry for joining me on the show. And now it's the time in the show for our review. I'm delighted to welcome back Dawn Southgate, Head of Knowledge at the CIM. And Dawn is going to advise us on the best marketing magazines. Dawn, welcome back.
Hello, Kieran. Today I will be reviewing the range of marketing magazines that are available, sticking mainly to hard copy titles, although most of them have an online presence. Maybe it's my age, but I do like flicking through hard copy magazines. I won't, however, be mentioning Cambridge Marketing Review or our own magazine, The Marketer, for obvious reasons. Back in 2008, there was a whole range of weekly journals, but this has shrunk considerably, so the key weekly marketing journal is Marketing Week, which is published by Centaur. It covers the key marketing news through the week, plus it has a range of columns offering industry opinion. Each week there are feature articles, in-depth reviews, plus articles covering marketing tactics. It also carries job adverts, as does its website. For a key weekly advertising journal, there is Campaign from Haymarket. Again, it covers what's happening in the industry, what pitches are out there, and who's winning them, plus also weekly opinion pieces. It regularly publishes rankings and each week reviews current advertising creative in circulation. For a general weekly read that covers the full roundup of world news, The Economist is a must. The problem I have is that I don't have enough time each week to read it in full, but it's good to dip in and out of. You may now be thinking, why has she not mentioned Marketing and PR Week? Both of these titles are from Haymarket, and both have, within the last year, moved to monthly publications. This allows for more in-depth opinion, trackers and reviews. PR Week again has a mix of news in brief and reviews. Both have named pages which act as good signposting throughout the publications. Whilst both have appointment pages for job adverts, they refer back to their website versions for the fuller listing. In the B2B arena, there is B2b Marketing, a monthly publication that specifically covers their area. Destination pages for me within the publication include their how-to section and their case study pages. For a longer business read, London Business School's Business Strategy Review is ideal. Its sections are literally the 3 words from its title, Business, Strategy and Review. And it includes interviews with key business leaders and gurus. It also carries research into the history of management ideas, corporate insight, book reviews, and also regularly revisits previously published articles, clearly showing how important they are still today. Now for the fun read. Wired is a monthly review of all things technical, futuristic and optimistic. It may cover how to grow plants in the desert, new styles of building, the latest filming techniques, latest hard-cased diving suits, if one might need them, tips on how to protect your data, or how to apply Kanban to your work. I believe that's how you say it. Kanban is a Japanese management technique developed by Toyota in the 1950s that aims to boost efficiency. The magazine stretches my knowledge and understanding, but gives me plenty of useless bits of information to talk about.
The Marketing Review with Cambridge Marketing Colleges. Visit marketingcollege.com to see our courses.
Thank you, Dawn. And if you missed Dawn's 3 book recommendations on our first show, you can download the podcast at star107.co.uk. And finally, we turn to an area of marketing that's of great interest to many companies in Silicon Fen, marketing for technology businesses. Here to discuss this with me is Tony Wilson, who's been a consultant for over 16 years in this area of marketing. Tony, welcome to the show. Could we start with, what is marketing for technology businesses?
Well, what we mean by this, Kieran, is, and not to be confused with the technology of marketing, which is a different subject. This is marketing as it's applied in the case of a technology business. Why is this interesting? Well, deep down, marketing is marketing and it's not fundamentally different. But we find that if you are a technology business, certain aspects of marketing assume a different level of importance than you might find in more conventional businesses. And in particular, the big one, the numero uno of this, is if you put yourself in your customer's shoes, and if what you've got is innovative or new or full of technology, your customers are going to perceive risk in doing business with you.
Would you say that marketing for technology businesses is any different from marketing to other businesses?
Yes. Well, yes and no. The short answer is yes, and the long answer is no. I think the fundamentals are entirely the same, but because of the customer's perception of risk, which doesn't play so strongly if you're a bookshop or a toothpaste manufacturer or a hairdresser, although it's there in principle, and because it's easy to get distracted by your own technology development processes and take your eye off what the customers want, this means that certain aspects of marketing have to be applied a little more strongly in the case of a technology business than they might in the case of a hairdresser's or a coffee shop.
And is this all about reassuring your customer?
Yeah, there's 2 things. If you think my favourite story on this is if you imagine yourself contemplating building an extension to your house, a large, risky project, how do you choose a builder? Yes, to be sure, you can listen to what the builders tell you about how competent they are and how skillful and how appropriate they are, but you're going, well, they would say that, wouldn't they? So in real life, if you're going to choose a builder, unless you've got a brother-in-law who's in the trade, you talk to your friends and you find somebody else who you know and trust who's done a project like this before, and you say, listen, How was it for you? Who did you use? And you tend to choose your suppliers that way. And it's the same with customers of technology businesses. They will want reassurance that other people are buying the same sort of thing. They will ask peers and colleagues and industry influencers, what do you know about XYZ company? Haven't heard of them before. Is this new thing safe? Is it going to work? So this is, you can call this the viral process if you like. You can call it referrals. But it works much better if it's not the technology company that's pushing out the messages, but if we can get the marketplace to transmit the messages for us. Because the company themselves, well, they would say that, wouldn't they? But if my mates are saying it, then it must be okay. And that's the key to overcoming these perceived risk barriers that technology companies have.
We've just had Terry Nicklin talking about marketing to stakeholders. So would you suggest that marketing to stakeholders is particularly important for technology businesses?
Yeah, a particular group of stakeholders. If you can identify the influencers and the opinion leaders in the market that you're dealing with, then these are very influential figures when it comes to technology marketing. There was a story told quite a few years ago by Malcolm McDonald, which I love very much. It amounts to the 10-second marketing strategy course. It goes like this. How does the marketplace work? Which bits are you going after? And why should they do business with you? And you even get 3 seconds for questions. Very simple questions, quite hard to answer. And the one at the top, which goes, how does the marketplace work, is very simple to ask, very hard to answer, because it contains underneath it questions like, how do your prospective customers make their buying decisions? Into that question goes, who do they talk to? Who do they listen to? Where do they get their inputs? And in the world of technology marketing, they're not going to get their inputs only from the selling companies. They're going to get them from the industry opinion leaders. And so now we're back with, how does the market work? How does the industry organize itself? Sometimes you find industry opinion leaders giving keynote talks at conferences. Other industries don't have relevant conferences, and so we go, who are the influential bloggers? Sometimes it's leading academics. Sometimes it is blue chip customers. And this is a set of questions that I find technology companies don't often even ask themselves. Who are the influencers out there? And it's very easy to overlook this as a centrally important piece of business development planning, if you like, to identify these people.
Tony, that brings me on to asking a little bit more about the work that you do. I know you've been in consultancy for technology businesses for 16 years and working in the business before that. Could you tell me the sort of clients that you work with?
Well, yes, predominantly they are technology companies. Wide variety. The subject of technology marketing has got two aspects to it. One is it does help if you're an expert in the particular science of nanotechnology or bio this or software the other. But the tools that I've been talking about are technology agnostic, if you like. And so I conduct my business reasonably locally to Cambridge, and I tend to engage with smallish companies, either who are starting up and wondering how to go about it, or more often who have been in business for a while and are discovering that all the hockey stick graphs of wonderful sales that they all experience to start with haven't quite gone on exponentially growing forever, in fact sometimes even declining, and they're wondering, well, what could we be doing better or differently to get these graphs going up again? And every client is different. The way I engage, if it's a question of strategy making, it really comes back to Malcolm McDonald's 3 questions. How does the market work? If you can answer that, you ought to be able to answer which bits of the market you're going to focus on. And of course everybody says, well, we'll do it all, won't we? No, we won't, because if we understand how it works, we can see that different bits of the market want different things. And if you want to bleed yourself dry, or if you have unlimited resources, of course you can go after the whole market at once, and if any of our listeners have unlimited resources, please do get in contact with me. Normally they don't do this, so we have to pick bits of the market to go after, and then the question is, why should they do business with you? Why should they do business with you? In real life, it's usually easier to start with that question, because most companies I see have a view as to why their clients should do business with them. It usually goes along the lines of, because we're completely brilliant and all the rest of it, and so we have to make sure that this brilliance translates into doing a real job for the client. If you can answer the question, why should they do business with us, then it's relatively easy to go back to, well, which sort of customers would these be then? Because not everybody wants to do the same job. So all of a sudden we've chosen which customers we're going to go for. Then I'm going, well, how do they actually make their decisions? And we're right back up amongst how does the market work again? And going up and down that train of thought is something that I help my clients do. I very, very seldom make strategies for anybody, and my job is to ask the questions to enable them to pick their way through how the market works and join in with it appropriately.
There's one thing you have on your website that I was very interested in, where you have a quote that most customers are not interested in technology, but in a solution to a problem.
Technology companies can find it very easy to forget that their customers don't have any interest in the technology in question. If they did, they would be competing with you. They're interested in running their own business. And what keeps them awake at night is not the technology, it's how we're going to make our business work better. This is the clients keeping awake at night. And as I think I said earlier on, technology is seen by many users as just another source of possible problems, things that can go wrong. What happens when it breaks? Anybody who's had the experience of their computer crashing will know exactly what I mean. And it's a very important question for the technology company to ask itself, how can I make that client's, that customer's business work better? And if you ask that question and answer it honestly, the answer is not always, oh, if you write a bit more code, it will be better. Very often the answer is yes, but if we help them integrate whatever it is into their processes, and we give them education as to how they might change their processes, and we give them training, and we have 24-hour support, and we do various other things and provide consultation and access to other partners, none of which has very much to do with the technology. This is what customers find helpful because it amounts to a solution to their problem, and technology companies need to pay attention to delivering a solution rather than a box of kit, which is usually seen as delivering a fresh problem. And we're drifting into the area of that's known as the complete product, which has been discussed by plenty of authors over time. It's not just the technology, it's all the stuff you've got to put around it to turn that into a solution for a problem. And of course, different customers see their problems differently and will need different solutions, and so we're back with market segmentation, so we're back with which bit of the market are you going to point this stuff at.
Tony Wilson, thank you so much for coming in and giving us the benefit of your expertise.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you, Kira.
The Marketing Review with Cambridge Marketing Colleges. Enhance your career with Cambridge Marketing Colleges.
And that's it for the show this time. If you would like any more information, or you'd like to listen to the show again, then head over to star107.co.uk, where you can do just that. You can get in touch with the show at the Marketing Review Facebook page or at #CMC Points of View on Twitter. I've been your host, Kiran Kapoor. Many thanks for listening, and I'll catch you again in 2 weeks' time.
The Marketing Review with Cambridge Marketing Colleges. Visit marketingcollege.com to see our courses.